All right, students. So today we are in fact going to be talking about temperate grasslands. And if we were to break down this particular term, we know fully well temperate areas are in fact are not, associated with tropical environments at all. All right, they are beyond, all right, the tropics. Okay. We will look at that just now in a couple of minutes. And also, when we hear the term grasslands, we can automatically conceptualize that the vegetation types, all right, are largely as encompassed by grasses. Okay. Now, in this particular map, we could actually see that temperate areas can be found in both northern and the southern hemisphere per se. But to get a better and a more specific understanding of it all, right, let us look at these particular areas colored in orange. All right, we can see them in North America. We can see temperate grasslands in Europe. Also, certain parts of Asia. We can see temperate grasslands in Australia, in South America, in South Africa. Sorry, also in South America. We can essentially say that temperate grasslands exist throughout the continents, obviously with the exception of Antarctica, which is too cold. All right. And in terms of understanding the climatic condition, we can bear in mind that these particular areas, if we could bring in the Tropic of Cancer and also the Tropic of Capricorn, we can see that all the temperate grassland zones, they do not exist within the bands of the tropics. All right, they are not associated with the tropics at all. So it simply means that the climatic conditions experienced there are in fact very much unique. Now, if we look at it, we can see North America. We consider North American grasslands to be called prairies, right? Apart from that, we also have the Eurasian steppes. The word steppe is in fact referring to a very vast landscape, which is essentially void of forest vegetation per se, but is in fact associated with grassland vegetation per se. All right. So we have the North American prairies, the Eurasian steppes, right? We have the South African Velds. We also have the South American Pampas, which is situated in Argentina. And by extension, we also have the Downs situated in Australia. Okay, let us begin with the prairies, right, which we know encompass the North American continent, extending as far as Canada and a vast extent of North America as well. All right. Now, students, this being said, that the prairies, right, if you look at the images on the screen for all of them, I'll give you a view of every single one of them. We know for sure the prairies are associated with grasses. As you can see, it pervades basically the entire area. The prairies specifically is in fact home to different organisms. Sorry, if we're not referring to vegetative per se, yes, they may vary from, say, for example, the Eurasian steppes and also the downs and the belts and stuff like that. But in terms of animals that they harbor, right, we can see, for example, the American bison is typically associated with North America. We can go down further by talking about ranchers, can also have their herded animals such as horses and whatnot, encompassing a very large area there. And also, there can in fact be cows and much say cattle and whatnot, herded animals, which can be simply associated in these areas. Now, these grasses are in fact relatively fertile soils, and farmers and ranchers and whatnot take very unique advantage of this particular characteristic. Okay, now these animals are just some of the organisms which may exist. They are not fully or exclusively referring to the organisms which exist in its entirety. There are many, many more. All right, but the fact of the matter is that we should try to give a better understanding by highlighting some of the major organisms that can give us a better understanding in terms of the location of these particular areas. All right, with respect to the Pampas, which is situated in Argentina, all right, we can see, again, largely associated with grasses, all right, occupying a very extensive area per se. And these areas are in fact home to some unique species. For example, we have the foxes, we have, some say the llamas, some say llamas, doesn't matter how you pronounce it. We also have even cattle as well. All right, a lot of the pasture lands, all right, whether it be temperate or even the tropical grasslands as well, are used largely for agricultural purposes. All right, but we are focusing more on temperate grasslands here, given the fact that we mentioned the location. Okay, now in terms of the Veld, right, the Veld in South Africa, all right, this particular area is in fact very extensive as well. As you can see, we mentioned continental areas per se. And the Veld is in fact home to unique organisms, for example, the majestic lions, the South African lions. We also have a variety of different organisms as well. If you look at the little insert here, we can see zebras at the waterholes. We can see wildebeest, all right, zebras, wildebeest here. I'm sure there are some other predators lurking somewhere around. And we cannot forget also these giraffes and stuff like that. So these are just a few organisms which may in fact exist. All right, then we have the Eurasian steppes. As you can see, this is also a very distinctive area, very vast in nature, encompassed by grasses as well. And we know for sure we have different organisms. For example, this is a very unique species here. This is actually what you call a Sega antelope. Apart from that, we also have argales. This is in fact what you call a mountain sheep, right, which is very, very unique. And also another very unique species which can be found in certain parts of this particular area, this extensive pasture lands and stuff like that, is in fact Przewalski's horses. All right, very, very unique species. So class, we can automatically understand that these organisms themselves may vary from continent to continent. So the vast nature of these extensive land masses, which harbor grasses, right, also unique ecosystems and unique habitats for a variety of species. Oh, and not to mention, we also have mammoths, all right? For example, this little organism which tend to burrow and live very close to the terrestrial environments as well. Now, with respect to Australia, all right, we have the downs in Australia. Oh, and to pay attention to one very important thing, this particular region of temperate grasslands are in fact found generally in the southeastern fringes of Australia. However, all right, the downs in Australia is in fact on the western side of the Great Divide. All right, look at, for example, this great mountain peak. Obviously, you can see the kind of reddish coloration here. We say for sure, we can automatically say that has to be Australia because Australia have very, very unique geology. All right, this kind of reddish coloration of their rocks. Now, this Great Range, right, is a very distinctive area which basically separates the further eastern side to obviously this western side, this particular grassland area, temperate grassland, is in fact on the western fringes, all right, or the western side of the Great Divide, that particular mountainous, or I should say elevated range that we're seeing on this particular region. All right. They are in fact, well, this area is in fact home to unique organisms. For example, we see here, we can see the wallabies. Now, wallabies are in fact similar. They belong to the family of kangaroos, but they are a little small in nature. They are smaller in nature. Right. We also have emus, right, which are in fact flightless birds. As you can see in northern, the upper part of the screen on this corner here. All right, they are very, if intimidated, they can become very, very aggressive. All right. Apart from that, we also have the wild dogs of Australia, which we usually, well, they are termed as dingoes. Now, because of domestication and inbreeding with other domesticated animals and dogs and stuff like that, this particular species is said to be virtually extinct, right? If not critically endangered. Okay, we also have foxes. Now, like I said before, right, these images are just highlighting some of the few organisms that we can automatically refer to or conceptualize when we think about these particular continental ranges. All right, this is by no means referring generally, oh, sorry, specifically to the organisms which exist in its entirety. This is in fact not true. For example, grasslands can actually harbor a multitude, all right, of different species. So these are just a few of these particular organisms. Now, moving quickly into the specific grasslands per se, this upper image is in fact showing grasslands can have a different coloration primarily because of the seasonal conditions which may in fact exist. All right. When the summer periods are in fact associated, all right, the moisture content is in fact significantly high. We know fully well these particular areas can have temperatures which can reach close to even say 37 degrees Celsius, all right, at its peak, all right, during the summer. Temperate grasslands also can also have areas, right, where the temperatures can actually drop significantly low, right, below 0 degrees, especially during the winter periods per se. that is under dynamic or significant seasonal changes. The image at the bottom here is actually showing a kind of a drier grass color, right? Perhaps because of cooler conditions per se, right? Now, students, we must bear in mind, just like tropical grasslands, I'm referring specifically to grasses, right? They are obviously not the same, but I just want you to bear in mind that grasses are in fact extremely resilient. All right, and when I say extremely resilient, I'm talking about their tolerance to temperature differences, their tolerance to seasonal changes and stuff like that. All right, grasses can exist in the tropics. It can exist even in the temperate areas and further. All right, they are in fact very unique vegetative species. That being said, all right, grasses in these particular areas, temperate areas, they are not as tall as those in the tropical savanna grasslands. But temperate grasslands per se, they possess heights of an average 2 meters, if not slightly more or slightly less. All right. So what I'm trying to say is that the grasses in temperate areas are slightly shorter than tropical savanna grasslands. Let us keep that, if we want to do a comparative study, keep that in mind. One of the reasons for this is because temperate areas receive a lot less energy, and given the fact that the moisture receipt and also temperature differences are much more pronounced, right? Tropical grasslands have taller grasses in comparison to temperate grasslands per se, but that doesn't take away from the fact that grasses are in fact very, very resilient. Now, speaking about the resilience of grasses, we must take into consideration also their growth, their spread, their range, referring to the lateral spread. How grasses technically spread laterally across the land, providing a kind of carpeting network. And basically, this helps to trap moisture and also nutrients, right, to which many edaphic soil organisms will take advantage of. All right, they basically have very distinctive root systems which can fortify stable characteristics. Right, grasses are in fact well rooted into the ground, and as a result of that, their leaf litter, which is created because of seasonal changes per se, given these specific conditions, they are associated with rapid rates of decomposition, primarily within the fertile soil, and primarily within the temperate areas, primarily within the summer periods, that is. And so grasses basically are in fact associated with fertile, thick soils. All right. And as a result of that, temperate grasslands are in fact fertile soils, fertile regions to which many ranchers, farmers, and whatnot will take advantage of. They will actually utilize the areas as grazing zones for their herded animals, whether it be sheep, whether it be goats, cows, you name it. All right, so this is in fact a major distinctive characteristic as such. We should, well, like I mentioned before, these significant root networks, which can permeate deep into the ground, deep into the soil, which also facilitate, maximize, upon the nutrients being derived. Now, a very important thing I want to take into consideration, I want you to always bear in mind, is that grasses generally, they do not require much nutrients to grow. Grasses generally do not require much moisture to grow. The temperature tolerance is of a relatively broad range. All right, so grasses are very resilient. All right, whether it be temperate areas, temperate grasslands, as we are talking about in this particular video, or we are in fact talking about tropical grasslands, as we would have mentioned in a previous video. All right, I just want you to bear in mind that grasses, they are associated with fertile soils per se, because their root systems and their intricate nature will actually result in a very neat characteristic, which will actually tend to result in a more of a retention of nutrients, moisture, and as a result, even bases. Okay, so I hope this video is actually beneficial to you all. If you are in fact any questions, feel free to let me know. Have a good one. Keep good. Keep safe. Bye bye.